Ladies and gentlemen, this is Internet Personality Vangelus, and I'm going to talk about some near-production test shots of the big bad bugs from Badcube's Evil Bug Core 3-piece value pack. First up is Claymore, the electronic warfare specialist, who's all up for breaking lots of glass because that leaves a whole lot of shrapnel around him because he's an unofficial version of the Insecticon. Shrapnel. Claymore's got a Stag Beetle-esque alt mode, all chunk-backed and jet-ski-legged. The shape reminds me enormously of the original 80s Shrapnel toy, though it's got some slightly more cartoony detailing. The colors all look proper to me, bright yellow cockpit and all. My understanding is that the yellow plastic is going to get a bit of a warmer tone before these go into mass production. A fairly loud and touted feature is that Badcube has used a mixture of gloss and matte finishes on several pieces of black plastic, like mixed finishes on the same piece. It's pretty cool and subtle in person. The silver is pretty unsubtle and gorgeous, shiny and clean in ways that Vac Metal Chrome will never be, in my opinion. The cockpit does open, though there's no storage space inside. I guess when it's open, it kinda looks like a chair. This mode's not very posable, leaving the bug legs as immobile as they were in the 1980s. There are two foldy bits up on the front from the transformation, and they can add a bit of emotion to this Robo-Stag's posture. His big pincer things are both on big ball joints, and these have got a wide open range of waggle, gesture, and clamp. This adds a ton. Also, the joints are just tight enough to hold on to rubbery cubes, though it's not rock solid enough to take a lot of poking while it's doing so. And hey, this guy includes a rubbery cube! It's energetically pink, just barely translucent, and looks all radioactive and glowy under my lights. It's also got a weird texture. Kinda squishy, but extremely firm once you've compressed it a couple of micrometers. Also, there was this one time in the cartoon where Shrapnel's bug mode had a cannon thing flip forward. This guy can do that. I'm very proud of him. If you pretend there's an invisible hinge swinging it around, Claymore's weapon storage is a nice way to start his transformation, since the bug leg skids are meant to clamp down around the gun once it's on his back. After that, there's a neat sliding lock piece to free the arms to be able to swing out and out of the way of all the upcoming conversion festivities. The legs do a double flippy swing and fold at the hips and knees respectively to extend out. After that, I get to see one of my favorite things in transforming robots, the gap filler panel. So far, this is a nice and clean update to the G1 Shrapnel Toys transformation, and spoiler alert, that is how a majority of this turns out. It's quick and fun to do. But the Evil Bug Core each feature one spring-powered conversion trick apiece, and Claymore's is the coolest of them all in my opinion. Compressing his spine into his torso simultaneously expands the upper body horizontally, executing a well-realized spot of automorph. If you flip open the yellow hatch, you can see how things work. Automorph isn't for everybody, but I feel childlike glee when I see it done effectively. The rest of the process is quick, clean, and fun, like I said all of about 15 or 20 seconds ago. Claymore's robot mode is similar to Badcube's previous offerings in that it's like a toy-chunked rendition of the character's cartoon appearance, but I feel that Claymore slims up and cleans up that aesthetic in his center mass, particularly at the hips and shoulders. I really like how much the bug legs skids hide away as a backpack. There is definitely more chunk on Claymore's shins and forearms, but I feel like it isn't to a detriment. The two hinged silver things on either side of his head, though, those stick out in a distracting way, and I wish they'd folded up more cleanly. They're implying the look of the G1 toy and the similar detailing Shrapnel had in the cartoon, but now that they're separate from the big Beetle horns, I think they'd have been better off folding up into Claymore's shoulder line. As for the head sculpt that rests between them, it's pretty boldly Shrapnel, from the big red visor to the Spartan-cheeked bucket helmet. Badcube's gorgeous silver paint mixes with a similarly shiny metallic red to make Claymore's face explode out from its black plastic casing. Much like the bug mode, I think the color work here is very strong. Scale-wise, these guys are obviously made with Badcube's previous work in mind, as well as the Hasui car robots. I think all the heights and proportions look good here. But the design of the shoulders and hips ends up making Claymore look like a bit of a foreigner alongside official Masterpiece stuff, though I think the simpler surface detailing helps him mesh in better than Brawny and Backland did. Claymore's got a cartoon-accurate purple gun stored on his back, which uses the now familiar Badcube tab handle grip to slot into the figure's palm. I'd like to see more silver paint myself, but this is how things were in the animation, so it's not really their problem. It's my problem. You can also untransform either of his hands to reveal the same cannon nozzle thingy that could swing forward in his bug mode. While Claymore's got a neutral expression on his face, an alternate plate is included to swap in a cocky, crooked smirk. It's a single peg connection that is pretty tricky to disengage without using something to lever the plate out, and the final effect is pretty darn subtle, but the function works. Now, this next thing involves popping ball joints and thus putting them under some duress, but if you want Claymore to wield his electric Beetle horns as a pair of electric Beetle swords, that is entirely possible. It looks super fun, but damn do I wish it involved something more elegant than ball socket popping. As it is, it feels more fan-mody than intended. This guy's head, even though it's recessed and all this stuff, is still on a ball joint. It means he can look left and right, although, you know, these things will impede his vision to some degree if you actually look at him from over here. His head can look up about that far. It can tilt about that far. And it can look up a bit farther if you don't mind messing with some stuff in here. Basically, if you keep pushing, it'll go up there. But these gray bits that are cupping the ball joints will go outwards slightly. I don't think that that's really messing too much with the fragility, if there is any, of the plastic in here. It all feels pretty strong. It doesn't feel like I'm going to break anything, but it is in the way of just smoothly getting him to look up, and you kind of have to wedge it in there for him to look up at stuff. These things are still all ambulate and posable if you so choose. He's got big ball socket joints for his shoulders. I think that aesthetically these are fine, but I know that there are some demographics in the folks who like to get high-end type things who hate big ball joints, and these ones are kind of unapologetic. Their range is pretty fine. Their tightness is real good on this copy of the toy. Like, it feels super strong, and I've been messing with these for about a week, and it hasn't felt like it's getting loose at all. If it did start to get loose, a gigantic ball joint's probably the easiest thing in the world to tighten, unless the plastic's weird, but it doesn't feel weird. There's a bicep swivel right underneath the big old ball joint. There's a double-jointed elbow that gets all fully curled up. He's got a wrist swivel, and then his knuckle can open up like thus. And his hands can look decently relaxedly open, and decently fisted, I guess. The waist joint has got a ball joint again, and this one's kind of weird. So you can, you know, move his waist left and right, and you can have him rock around a little bit. He can also rock deeper if you let the waist joint extend out about that far. Now, if you do that, something that'll be kind of weird to see is that will make the automorph ever so slightly retract. This doesn't bug me that much because it's not like it's completely covering his head up, but be aware that you need to pop it up a little bit to get the full range of the forward and backward side-to-side motion of the ball socket joint. That is his waist. His hips ratchet forwards and backwards. 3 clicks for 90 degrees. 3 clicks for 90 back if you so choose. I kind of wish that there were 6 clicks, but I haven't found myself unable to get his legs into poses I want so far, and I think part of what helps is the outward motion is a more buttery detent that doesn't really have, like, dead set clicks, so this is pretty free range and solid. There's a dedicated thigh swivel. His knees are double jointed, but it's more so one of those cases where you've got 2 joints working in tandem to accomplish a 90-degree bend with a gigantic chunk of boot on the bottom. And by virtue of his design, when he bends his knees, like, he is kind of sitting down on the chunk of his boots. So there are 2 joints, but you're not going to get, like, much more than 90 degrees. His ankles can tilt all like that. And then there is a separate dedicated hinge, well, this is a transformation hinge, to let his feet point downwards, and that is detented. This isn't, but that is. And then there's another joint here, which allows for a little bit of forward foot tilt without using the joint back here. So he's kind of got 1, 2, 3 separate joints in his feet. And his toes don't really toe up fig art style. Like, there's transformation curl here. Doesn't really do anything, though. He's pretty poseable. He's fun. And he is sturdy. He feels real good. A lot of his joints feel dead solid. He's tight to transform as well, and I don't want to mess up the silver paint, so I want to orient him such that that won't be an issue. But I'm pretty sure he can take a good spill or 3 without too much worry. The automorph thing in here is real simple. Like, it's a column, and then there are springs pushing these 2 parts in. It's just 3 big components. There's no, you know, careful, like, fragile small parts involved in there. So, real fun, like, chunky playable toy, and that's kind of the precedent set now by Badcube's offerings. It continues on in these guys. Claymore's got a lot of qualities I enjoy, from the alluring silver paint to a solid build quality in both articulation and transforming engineering, even with a 3-segment automorph going on in the chest area. He feels playable, looks sharp, and comes the closest Badcube have come yet to gelling one of their releases in alongside official Masterpiece stuff. As this version of Claymore is part of a 3-pack, I'll try to avoid being too repetitive right off the bat, but given that there are several companies doing Insecticons at this scale right now, let me make it clear that Badcube appear to be very committed to the aesthetic idea of a G1 toy that is better realizing itself to the details and proportions of the G1 cartoon. I believe some other companies, Fans Toys in particular, tend towards an opposite approach, taking the cartoon design first and having it better realize itself to the necessities of being a physical toy. Be prepared to see the toy-to-toon look in the other two Evil Bug Corps members as well. Personally, I am into Badcube's approach due to the fun and chunky engineering that it has often resulted in, but with 3 very different takes on the Insecticons hitting the unofficial market very soon, I'm not going to tell you what your own aesthetic preference should be. And to be honest, I find myself interested in all 3 takes that are currently in development. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope you like mind control, because the hypno chip I shot into the back of your skull while you were washing your hands this morning is now encouraging you to hit the next part of this review micro-trilogy. Right now!